more on this, let's bring in Christopher Metzler, conservative analyst and author of the books Divided We Stand, The Quest for America's Soul, and The Construction and Rearticulation of Race in a Post-Racial America. And Jason Nichols, liberal commentator and professor. Gentlemen, thanks both for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Molly.
My pleasure.
Well, let's start off with this. The president's been out speaking. He's been holding a lot of rallies, especially across those Rust Belt states, and he is not shy about feeling good about his victories, about essentially running again. He plans to win again. Now, during the course of his campaign, he had all that confidence and was exuding it, and he was consistently beating the competition. So why not believe him now that this potentially could go in the Republicans' favor? Nichols?
Well, I think that the one thing that is a big concern, and he may seem confident in some respects, but if you read his tweets every morning, he seems very shaky about this whole Mueller probe, which I think is energizing a lot of people on the left. I think he's got a lot of troubles. We know that Phil Bredesen is showing strong signs in Tennessee in the Senate race. We've got Beto O'Rourke, who is within striking distance in Texas. We see that Republicans who have tried to go to measures of voter suppression in Georgia have been challenged by the courts. And so that shows a good sign for Stacey Abrams. So we've got really a lot of things to be very confident about. I think that there will definitely be a blue wave, but I don't like to talk about waves because waves begin and end, and we want something that's going to carry us through to 2020.
And Christopher, bringing you in, it seems really like both sides are sort of cautiously optimistic. And the Republicans seem to be feeling a little bit better. At first, there was a lot of talk that, oh, this could be really bad, and now there seems to be more talk about how potentially it may not be as bad. And the president there saying, you know, why not? Maybe there is a potential for a red wave.
Well, let me just say that Republicans, we are not cautiously optimistic. We are optimistic. So a couple of things. First of all, this whole conversation about this blue wave is really fascinating to me. It's fascinating because the blue wave is simply going to crash up against the red wall, and that will be the end of that. From the perspective of Americans don't care. I keep hearing this thing, and I just heard it a moment ago, about he's concerned about the Mueller investigation, blah, 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 blah. Americans are concerned about, can we feed our families? What does the economy look like? Are we better off than
a lot of teachers can't feed their families right now.
I didn't interrupt you. I would appreciate the same. Sure. And so from my perspective, really, we're looking at, are we better off than we have been under the failed policies of the left? The answer is yes. Thus, there is really nothing to be cautious about. We are optimistic. Republicans will retain both the House and the Senate.
Jason, I want to bring you in here. As we look across the map that we've seen so far, there have been seats that were held by Republicans. They held 8 out of 9 of those seats in these special elections that we've seen thus far since 2016. However, Democrats, these were very close races in places that the president had these wide margins. Well, we just saw Republican manage to hold on in Ohio in that special election, but by a tiny, tiny little margin, the Democrat came very close. So is that some of where the hope for Democrats is coming? Even though Republicans have managed to hold these seats for the most part and have their wins, a win is a win, it seems like, that there's some enthusiasm on the Democratic side.
Oh, absolutely. You saw with the Balderson situation, he should have won that race far and away, but we see that it was razor thin. I think Balderson won over Danny O'Connor by 1,600 votes. That is a very, very thin margin. And that's something that has been held for 35 years by Republicans, and complete Republican dominance. And the fact that we're even in play in places like that should be very scary for a lot of Republicans. So this talk of a red wall, that red wall will get, demolished by this blue wave that's coming up. And, I like his confidence. I hope he stays confident. I think that kind of confidence is what keeps Republican voters at home. So I think he should think twice about that and be trying to motivate his people and telling them about a blue wave rather than saying, oh, no, we have nothing to worry about.
You know, Christopher, bringing you back in, when we talk about what we've seen on the map, the 8 out of 9, great for Republicans. The one seat where they got that Democratic victory, the upset was in that corner, southwest Pennsylvania, where Conor Lamb, who actually, during the course of his campaign, agreed with some of Trump's policies, particularly on tariffs. That's steel country, of course. So is that what we're looking at here? If you can find the candidates that really match their districts, be it Democrat or Republican, especially in those areas where the fight is so hard, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, where the president was making these statements about the economy. I mean, is that part of what we're watching, that these issues, as you mentioned, the economy?
Yeah, well, it is in fact part of what we're watching with those issues. But to the extent of the kind of conversation and the kind of confidence that we have as Republicans is what's going to keep our voters at home, nonsense. In fact, it is what is going to motivate our voters. And the left, although they're very shaky to talk about it, is secretly talking about impeachment behind closed doors. That's the kind of stuff that gets us motivated. So good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much of a secret, but we shall see. Dr. Christopher Metzler, Dr. Jason Nichols, thank you both so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.